have these fascinating discussions about the concept of designer solar systems. Like make up a solar system the way that you want to create life. And honestly, looking at Mars, looking at Venus, Mercury, I think that at one time there were probably 3 habitable planets, Earth-like planets, in this solar system, and now there's only the one left, which is us. And that that's a shame, but I think that we're here for a reason, and I think that there's some involvement by some higher beings in the whole process at some point in the distant past, for sure.
I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but what do you think happened? Why is there only one left now then?
Well, we have a paper that's been on the Enterprise mission website that Richard and I put together in, I believe, 2001, and it's titled the Mars Tidal Model, TIDAL, in terms of tides and tidal model. And essentially what that theory does is it takes the idea that the late Dr. Van Flandern came up with, or really popularized, which is called the exploded planet hypothesis, that essentially says that there are at least 2 missing planets in the solar system, one that was in the orbit roughly where Mars is now, another that is in the orbit where the asteroid belt is now. And it kind of works to Bode's law, which is the idea that every planet is about twice as far from the sun as the previous planet.
Yes.
And so, what we think happened was that there was kind of, as I like to put it, an inner Earth, which was Venus, an outer Earth, which was Mars, and a middle Earth, which is this one. And what happened was that the planet that Mars orbited, and Mars was not a planet per se, it was the moon of a much larger rocky terrestrial planet that Dr. Van Flandern called Planet V or Planet 5, and a lot of people have other names for it. But, it's clear from the evidence of looking at the actual geology of Mars that it was formerly in a tidal-locked arrangement around this larger parent planet, in the same way that the moon is in a tidal-locked arrangement with the Earth, meaning that it orbits the Earth with the same face facing us at all times. We never see the backside from the Earth because it's in a tidal lock relationship.
Yes.
And as you look throughout the solar system, you see this tidal lock relationship between Jupiter and all of its moons, between Saturn and its moons, and large bodies and smaller bodies are always arranged this way, because what happens is that the larger body sort of strips away the angular momentum of the moon or the smaller planet and keeps it in that locked relationship. And what you get with that is you get bulges on both the moon and on the parent planet, facing each other. And you have a large bulge on the side facing the other body, and you have a smaller bulge on the opposite side of the planet, 180 degrees around. And as you look at Mars, you see exactly that situation. You see clear tidal bulges. They could not be more obvious. They're gigantic. And one is much larger than the other. And then, of course, you have the southern hemisphere, which is massively cratered and just spattered with all sorts of debris. And, to us, it's completely obvious, and I think the paper is about 45 pages, but it's completely obvious that Mars was in a tidal-locked relationship with a larger parent planet. That planet exploded. It blew up. We don't, it's speculative whether there was, that was an artificial destruction, whether it was a natural disaster, but, we think that disaster was what basically wiped out life on Mars. It certainly would have spewed debris into the inner solar system. It probably is the event that, killed the dinosaurs with the asteroid strikes on the Earth, nearly killed all the life here. And we think that Venus, if you look at Venus, there's a huge trough or trench cut pretty much right around almost the equatorial circumference of Venus. And we think what happened there was that a large chunk of this debris basically hit Venus kind of edge on around the equator and at thousands and thousands of miles an hour, and kind of stripped the planet and vaporized the oceans and created this horrible, cloudy, steam venting kind of hell that Venus is now. So that's the theory. It's all laid out. I know that's a little more information than you wanted, but
that's very good.
That's what we think is the situation, and now we're the only one left. So we've got fragile existence here that we have to preserve.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, it's a very interesting one, and we've been talking about similar ideas before in this program as well. So I think our audience will be familiar with with Bode's law and that something has happened in our solar system. Absolutely. And the question is then if we can I guess tie this in together straight away with NASA. Then do you think that NASA have any kind of information about this? Do you think that they hold this idea themselves, the occult NASA, so to speak, not the official NASA here?
Yeah, they have to be. I mean, the thing is, Richard and I have had this conversation many times, which is that we can't be the smartest guys on the block. There has to be somebody else. There have to be other people inside NASA that look at this information and realize what it means. They're not dumb. They understand what tidal bulges are, and so yeah, absolutely, we think that they know about this. So clearly, they must realize that we came. Perhaps, maybe even human beings came from Mars after the disaster that took the life, away on that planet and ruined whatever civilization was there. And it's also possible, because there's so many of these secret societies involved inside NASA, it's possible that they already, pretty much knew the story because this was passed down generation upon generation through this priesthood, these secret societies that kind of dominate NASA on the inside.
Hmm. And do you care to mention some of these secret societies? Which are you thinking about?
Yeah, in Dark Mission, we describe them as the Masons, the Freemasons, the Nazis, and the Magicians is how we describe them.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the names we give them. Basically, we found those three groups primarily. The Freemasons were probably the dominant organization there. You had many of the astronauts, a number of them that walked on the moon were Freemasons. Many others that were in different missions were Freemasons. The gentleman who ran the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs, named Kenny Kleinknecht, was not only a Scottish Rite Freemason, but his father and later his brother were both the actual titular head of the Sovereign Grand Commander, they call it, of the 33rd degree Scottish Rite. Freemasons in the United States. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, took a Masonic ceremonial apron with him on Apollo 11, and we think pretty clearly performed a Masonic ceremony on the moon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, in fact, we're going to have a revised edition of Dark Mission coming out this fall. I believe September or October. I think it's going to be September. Mm-hmm. And we actually have more information on that. So we cover it in Dark Mission, but then we expand upon it and provide a little bit more evidence of something funky going on with the Masonic ceremony in the lunar module before they went on their first moonwalk. Mm-hmm. So you have this very strong Masonic influence. You have the Nazi influence, which is through Wernher von Braun and the rocket scientists that were brought over to America through what was called Project or Operation Paperclip back in the war era. And, von Braun was not simply a German rocket scientist. He was also a member of the Nazi Party, and even more than that, he was a member of Hitler's SS. And the SS was a secret society, just similar to the Freemasons. And the funny thing is that, people don't really understand this, but the SS at their core belief system, the Nazi ideology, and the Freemasonic ideology are essentially the same in that they both worship these ancient gods of ancient Egypt, Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Those are the gods of both of these secret societies. So, and then in JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory out here in Pasadena, California, near where I live, you had they were running all the unmanned probes, all the lunar orbiter programs, and so forth, and the founders of JPL were deeply involved with people like Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, who of course now started the Church of Scientology. And I'm not necessarily saying Hubbard was involved in this, but Crowley was a Satanist, and certainly, well, I don't know if he was a Satanist, but he was a believer in the occult, and ultimately Crowley's belief system and the belief systems of Jack Parsons and people like that who founded JPL, they also worshipped Isis, Osiris, and Horus. So you have this very consistent theme, and these three secret societies all kind of vying for power behind the scenes in NASA,